phakathi wasekuruleni Patrick Mahlangu Sihlalweni Progressive Civics Congress sisesondela sizomitha with officials we-SHRA, Social Women's Regulations Act. One of the reasons why you are here, abantu bethu bahlukumezeka, abaphathwa kahle, babhilwa abnormally, abanagesi, there's no proper sanitation, akuphutshwa umlotha, there's nothing happening. We had a meeting with Cllr whom they confirmed that yes, they suspect there's issue of fraud. We are here to discuss the issue of why are they abusing abahlali, why they are abusing abantu base South Africa, because even if you can check the act, I could here. Others they are paying 800 and something, others 1,000 plus, others more than 5,000. We are therefore saying, down with that, I think.
I've got 2 colleagues from SHRA, Social Housing Regulatory Authority, and I've got 1 colleague from the National Office. So it's the 2 of us from the National Office. So abaningi bayamazi baba lo duze naye. Uzo he will be the main speaker today. So baba dam singamshisa isikhathi uyashisa. Thank you. Sanibona nonke. Bahlali base Sondela. Njengoba nazi phambi kwenu Sithenjwa wakadladla. I am the regulations manager at the SHRA. So our department mainly deals with what we call distressed projects. When projects have not gone the way, our social housing projects have not gone the way it's supposed to be, then we try and we do our best within the confines of the legislation that governs social housing to then get it back. And the aim is that, as you know, we've said it time and again, Sondela was a social housing project. And as a recap, I'm just going to try and just explain and go back to the beginning, our role, and really when we come back and forth, what we are trying to do here at Sondela. And once given that, then I will then know the reason of this meeting is that we literally had to come back. We've been having being contacted to say let's come and address the people. There's issues, so the platform will then mainly be to then maybe just one-on-one deal with those issues and make sure. But I need everyone to just understand what we're trying to do, and we can then iron out everything from there. I do apologize, I was here very early, and I do apologize for us taking some time to get the meeting. From the last meeting, it was clear that the reconnection of electricity is at the forefront, or is the main thing after security, because security had, at least there was something there that, the resident needed the issue of electricity dealt with squarely, and we've made efforts, or we've tried to say, okay, when we come back, let's then have the relevant officials, because remember there's a service provider, which is the municipality. Let's have them come back and then at least address that point, which what it would take to get the electricity back. We tried up until yesterday, and this morning we were fortunate to actually then, which is why we're late, to actually have somebody from the office of the municipality then come and say, okay, I've heard, he was approached before, I've heard of what's happening in Sondela, SHRA, tell us what you are doing. So unfortunately he couldn't make it to this meeting, so we had to go to him. That's why we're coming late now, to say this is basically where we are, can you assist us? And we know which now the issue is within their radar. And as we were talking with Uba Manyama, is that maybe together with the SHRA, because we can't then everybody be outside the office, maybe with the SHRA, and then as a committee, as a community, maybe our representatives that we are able to put forward to then go back to the office of this, or to the municipality as a whole, and whoever is involved, and then we're working hand in hand then to at least have some traction on the electricity issue as well, because we cannot avoid it. As far as we see, but while we are doing our thing, we can't say electricity is gonna. It's a must. It's being raised every now and then, and for the process to actually carry on, I think effort then from us, from what we are doing, and then from the community, so that they can then be proper feedback from the community, that we do engage then with the service provider, which is the municipality, to then discuss the issue in general, and then what it will take for them to say today we are restoring power back at Sondela. So that's just the one issue that held us back this morning. Safe to say, which we are here, that's basically, if we're gonna discuss electricity, that's basically the parameters or the way, what has latest transpired of late regarding that particular issue. But it is serious, and as I said, which we can't regularize, or the process of regularization cannot be finalized until because this regularization meaning getting the project back to what it was meant to be, functioning properly. So services are the lifeline of the project, and it's something that then has to be dealt with. You'll appreciate that there are different stakeholders, which obviously we can talk, but they need to then make the relevant decisions to make sure which at least by the time whatever that process, they either a way forward, and they've given us a proper map, or the electricity is back already. He did indicate that looking at the difficulties with the cable and so forth, it's nice that we are talking, but it might take time for them, because they also need to budget for it in their system. So I can't speak for them, but we were just speaking in general. They need to then look for it and then see what it would take to be ready to switch back on, because they need to first get to that point where they're saying, we can switch back on at any time, and that process will be detected by how they then sort out any infrastructure issues. But what I like is that they are open to engagement, and I'm gonna ask the community, I'm not sure if everyone's here, to then see if there's trusted individuals nominated by yourselves to then accompany us on this journey, and then give live feedback, or some way where you are able to then communicate to the people so that they know where we are on the electricity issue. As far as then the SHRA is concerned, we've come before and we have stated, but it seems that our process is just needs to be emphasized again, as to where it started and what we're trying to achieve with this now regularization, calling people to say, please fill in that application form, please give us your details, because we need to then, what would then be the purpose of that, and the importance of then us at least pushing that point, and then making sure that we are on the same page as far as that is concerned. The other issue is that we've been saying even in these meetings that we're going to explain the process in terms of the law and what we are then mandated to do. But we are not saying, Guti, by doing the process, you guys have the history, that everything that was done, everything that is wrong, is now being pushed under the carpet. You are not signing away to say, my rights are now over, I'm handing them over to the SHRA. We are mainly vetting and regularizing. So whatever has happened to you individually relating to this estate, whatever you have, whatever wrong, or I know there's things that it's been said time and again as to what happened with the company that used to run this and so forth. So that process, look at it as is, but it's not saying now. In fact, it gets us closer to a point where we then deal with what happened, maybe specifically regarding your units. If there were overcharges and those things are there, they have to be dealt with, and this process is not saying forget about them. Equally so, what had happened, and however monies were moving, and where you paid, and how we trace your particular account and what you've put towards the complex, that is an issue that needs evidence, but we can discuss in this platform, but it's for you. We will need facts, but again, us saying we are in the process of regularizing. We're not writing away any of those claims that you have, most of which I believe are legitimate, and you can deal with them as and when we don't. It doesn't even have to be a give or take. As and when you are dealing with the regularization process, you raise your issues, and then the SHRA will need to look at them. As the SHRA, we are a statutory body. We were established in terms of the Social Housing Act, number 16 of 2008. So we are established solely to regulate the social housing space, and meaning that as the regulator, we then do our part in terms of the act, and then are responsible or report to the minister in the Department of National Department of Human Settlements, and then we also have a dual reporting mandate to Parliament. So everything we do has those then balance and checks, and whatever, I do emphasize that whatever then, even what is happening now, that is not in line or that you feel that is wrong and whatnot, we don't have to fight it out in this law, and we don't have to prove it here and who's right and who's wrong. There are channels to then, even now, whatever has happened before and what is happening today, to actually go after, because we are not just a rogue regulator. We do account to certain offices, including the Office of the Public Protector. So there is ways, guys, to deal with anything that you don't like or you feel that is being done even currently, to actually deal with it. We have to work with each other in that way, to just understand what we're trying to do, and then if you don't disagree, or if you know which there's an issue that needs to be taken, we encourage you to take it. But in this forum where we are literally trying to find consensus, we must not then fight and then be a back and forth on those issues that when you know you have evidence for, you can prove, but now you're trying to prove it here, and then there's a back and forth on who said what. You must just deal with, we encourage you to collate that evidence, deal with it accordingly, have that person dealt with in the full manner of the law. Because at the end of the day, we're not trying to break the law, we're just trying to save Sondela. And what I'm saying here, I'm not trying to impose anything on anyone, I'm just going to state what the law is mandating us to do, which is what we are doing at the moment. Then we can take it from there. So in terms of this act, I actually brought a copy, just so that I can read a few things from it that actually highlights what we are doing. In terms of this act, it was established to regulate one particular program, government, which is called social housing. So it's got a specific name. It's that, and the reason they call it that is because of certain things, which I will go through. But it then doesn't cater for the other. So, which means that government, by me saying what happens under social housing, I'm not closing anyone off who's got any other rights here in terms of housing. There are programs that are dedicated. This one was specifically envisaged to try and deal with a particular situation, and that's what it was for, and that's when we're saying regulate. We're just trying to get it back in line with that. But obviously when we deal with you and there are certain issues that you want to raise, we'll then have to look at the bigger picture according to your circumstances. And then depending on the responsibilities of government, then we deal with you. So it's not a once and for all thing, and then you have no, it literally, that's why I was saying, as and when you speak or you connect with the people that are assisting us with regularization, state what your issues are, and then have those then recorded, so that whatever then happens in the process, your circumstances are clear, and then the responsibilities of government are also clear regarding your particular circumstance, right? So that's our point of departure. So what I just want to read is actually the definition of social housing, what it is, and then how it then comes about that we are here. So I'm reading straight from the Act. So social housing, according to the Act, means a rental. A rental. That's the main one. A rental and cooperative housing option.
Rental. Sizokasha kuyaqashwa la usemqashweni. Thank you.
Ngizocela bangisize bafethu, especially lamagama efanele siwazi. Ukurenta meaning ukuthi mawungena you don't own the property but usayina an agreement with the relevant person who then pay an amount to hlala lapho every month, and as long as that amount is paid and you are you are complying with the requirements of the lease, that relationship continues. So it's governed by OE. Iranwa lease agreement, but it's a rental option. So once I mention social housing, I just need people to understand then the definition, which is a rental or cooperative housing option for low to medium income households. That's our beneficiary in terms of this locuzalo of this act. So we are targeting and we are specifically saying people who then fall. So when I say regularizing, we actually want to see and prove with you are here and now you are complying with the act. It's all about compliance. For low to medium income household at a level and scale built which requires institutionalized management, which is provided by social housing institutions or other delivery agents. So the provider and the implementer is a social housing institution or other delivery agents. In this case, think Cllr. This is how they initially, we're not saying what they did right, but this is now the plan in its ideal form. Which this is how they were meant to assist the government in actually providing this social housing. So the act actually says which they must be a social housing institution or other delivery agent in approved projects. So the project needs to be approved, and who are the stakeholders there? It's everybody. It's your municipality, it's your province, it's the SHRA that actually needs to be involved in this project to get it to its final approval before it's even built. That is so important that even when the agreement is signed with that institutional with that housing institution, that agreement actually also includes the province, which is Gauteng altogether. They need to read it and then they need to sign as one of the parties. So there are 3 parties in that agreement that allows us to then invest in social housing. There's the SHRA, there's the province, and there's that body that's envisaged in the act. In this case, again, I implore you to just think Cllr. Projects designed and in designated restructuring zones. That's where again the municipality helps us in, or the entire chain human settlements. They help us actually identify. You can't build these projects anywhere. It has to be first classified as a restructuring zone, and the restructuring zone, that classification is only meant for social housing. If we build 1 minute outside social housing, 1 kilometer outside social housing, we fall foul of this act and we can't. So then whatever land is identified within declared restructuring zones, and you would assume that then, let's keep being here, that this was one of them. And restructuring zones with the benefit of public funding as contemplated in the act. So that's basically the guidelines. That's what we work out. We've worked out who our beneficiary is. In this definition, we work out who the stakeholders are, meaning who are the participants. Again, I will emphasize it's the SHRA being the regulator that's appointed to look after basically look after social housing and report to the minister and parliament. And then there's these bodies who then actually identify projects and then come to the SHRA to say, SHRA, I've seen something, I've spoken to the municipality, it is a restructuring zone, I've done this, I've done that, and I've got my portion of the investment. Can you then consider me for a grant? That is your institutional, that's your SHI, social housing institution, and the others, we call them other delivery agents. There's a bit of a difference, but because this was an institutional, this was a social housing institution in healthcare, we'll stick to that part of it, of the definition. So they then come, present everything, and then through that presentation, then the act, these regulations have criterias. If you open these regulations, I did give out a few copies, but it's this is the only copy I got myself. There's a criteria, which then the SHRA goes into and ticks. So we don't appoint, or no one comes and say, "Yo, I'm appointed by the SHRA." They present their proposal and project, and then we take them to what is called the qualifying criteria in terms of these regulations. They were done by the minister. The minister then says, in order to actually be considered for that grant that you are asking for, you will have to be this as a company in terms of governance, in terms of, and then the act then says once these people meet that criteria, they have to then be accredited. So there's no discretion by the SHRA to say, this one now must not go out, this one must not go out. We have to take them through accreditation, and then when you read this in conjunction with the Act then says we must accredit them, right? Which means they will then get accreditation from the SHRA, and that's what happened to Let's Care. They then get the accreditation, they then do everything necessary then in order to do that. Now what happens at the end is that once they've then met all the criteria and they've gone through, so they go through relevant, go through a lot of internal processes where their application, so once it's gone through the accreditation, it then goes to our MANCO, which is our manager committee, again it goes to our executive committee, but the SHRA has a council, a SHRA council, that finally approves that CCG, and then that says SHRA, you can then sign, and then should they then build according to how they've stated in their proposal, and then you can sign, and then the monies can be released. Now the money that is released by the SHRA is mainly for building and the cost that it takes to actually have a structure and have all these in place. And what then the Act says is that we'll then have that, we'll have those costs running. How then the project sustain itself, because it's a rental option, is rentals. So which means that going forward, they are tasked with the building side, these people, but going forward they have to manage it in a manner that preserves it, in a manner that then gives the tenants the benefit that was initially envisaged in the Act, and that people then live in that secure manner and are then encouraged to participate in the economy and better themselves in order to then move out. There's other projects that assist you when you now do reach some sort of a boundary in terms of your salary, where you still may not be able to approach the bank directly, which I want my own bond. But then government then has a program that looks at that kind of situation, because at the end of the day, the main thing regarding the entire program is the emancipation of those who initially would not have had an equal opportunity to actually run through the process in the normal sense, in the sense that you are able to go to school properly, you are able to get a high-paying job, and then by the time you get your high-paying job, you are able to buy a place in the city. So we want some people to actually graduate to get there. So that's why you'll see with our mostly, or what we look at is that our leases are short-term, they are 12 months, so that they are reviewed annually, so that we can encourage that progress and make sure that we are able to deal with then the purpose that it was trying to achieve. So that's basically what we're looking to. So when we then get to the end of the process, they would have then been granted the grant, which I say is about 70%. They would have then somehow raised capital to cover the balance, and then they would have built according to the standards, and then they would have been signed off. We would say, okay, this is complete, now you can tenant. So at tenanting, which is what happened even here, they then vet people according to the Act, and they tenant them in that way. So you will find that as much as it's in a specific area, we then look at whoever then applies, take them through that vetting process to say it is the beneficiary as envisaged in the Act. And once that process is clear, and remember the target is the low to medium income household, and then that as well has not been left to the SHRA to decide. The minister has actually went further, or the government has actually went further, to say those are people who are earning between 1,850 and 22,000. It's there. That's where we're looking for. So we're saying we regularize. We need to then make sure that in line with the Act, the person who's occupying that particular unit actually then falls within that bracket. Right? Without, again, this is what the project, the Lokuza it's been passed, without trying to discriminate against someone who's earning less and without someone who's earning more. There are programs for that, and government saying this. So when the SHRA comes and say we're regularizing, we're just simply trying to say, are you the beneficiary as we had envisaged in the Act? And if you are, may we then help you to then establish yourself and then get the benefits that was meant in terms of this. And then when you are in a situation like this one, where there are then issues prior and you are not enjoying the property because for some reason at some stage AMA services were cut, at some stage the place is not kept, at some stage there's no security, there is now deficiencies. We then need to work together with the beneficiary. We're not saying, okay, just pay rent for the sake of it. To then get back to that to that point where you are then able to say, again, there's issues that are coming up where the burden, the one thing that we don't want is to burden you so much, because we already know where you are earning, is to burden your income so much that when now all you are doing is paying rent, but you can't buy food, you can't do electricity and so forth. So we need to, again, to work this thing in order to work. We must strike that balance to say, you've given an opportunity, but in an ideal situation, it must not be a burden to you, to a point where you can't even get any food or anything, when now you are being charged so much that you are now just saying, as long as I've got a roof under my head under a roof, everything else I can't do. The program still wants you to function as a human being, and that's why they actually kept the rental. So if you look at the regulations, it would say that the gross income that is being looked, the household income must never exceed 33.3% of that person's salary. Meaning, our rent will be different because, first of all, we're looking at how much you're earning, and then in order to calculate your specific rental, we can't remove it and say, we're not just pay, this is how much you pay. We still need to link it to your salary so that you are able to survive. To say at 185, we can't now be charging you 1,000 and then when I soon know 850 to do things. We can't now be charging you 2,000 because already your salary says you can't cover 2,000. So whatever rental is specific to you is then calculated according to the act to make sure that it's sustainable for you as well. So it's a balancing act that requires everyone, not just the SHRA, but all involved, including yourselves, to then work it out so that at the end of the day you can say, I'm benefiting in line with what is required in the act. So once that process is done at the end, they will then tenant the project. Again, I have to emphasize that tenanting is not just everybody in the community. They vet you according to what is then required in the act, and depending on those are the people, the families that will get units within the social housing project. And then once it's handed over, then the mandate. So these are private companies. Most of them, the Act insists that they register as NPOs, and then the Act strictly says that as they register, their own MOI must actually, it's a memorandum of incorporation, which means that document that they use to incorporate, it must actually state that whatever rental you collect, any surplus will then be used back into the community. If there's no ground, the money must never be divided as a dividend to say it's making anyone rich. The program itself must sustain, it must grow, it must be able to attend to any increases, maybe in security, it must be able to attend to rates, some increases in rates and so forth. The program must be sustainable. So we're saying anything that's more that you collected that didn't go towards, and rent again, another aspect that I haven't touched on, is actually calculated on operational expenses. So they need to state up front, this is basically what we are going to need to keep the state as clean as it is, a gardening company and what. And when we calculate rental, it then must take into account what it would take so that at the end of the month, whoever is then cleaning in the complex is actually paid, right? Which means there was someone benefiting the complex and then the money goes out. Not that I was there and then I'm here to collect from people and I'm here to then enrich myself. So it's a give and take. There must be a service, and that's how that's what we have in mind, even when we're calculating the rental, right? So once it's fully tenanted, then obviously now it's owned. One of the other things is like its ownership and so forth. So in terms of regulation, I think it's regulation 19 here, but in terms of the regulations, there's only 3 ways in which ownership can come in a social housing. One of them is when you bring your own land. So you've got your land within a restructuring zone. When you bring your own land and saying, government, I want to contribute to social housing, I'm going to use my land to build 150 units. It's my land, I've got. So one of the insistence is that in the Act is that the land in question, when you're looking at ownership, must be in the name of the SHI that we are crediting. So when you're going to use your own land, then the land must be in the name of you. So which in this case was, let's say, the land must be in the name of Let's Care, so that when we accredit Let's Care to the fullest, we know that then the land belongs to them. Then we have what we call a notarial deed of restriction, which is then signed and registered against any title deed that is issued under that property, where we then as government try to protect our rights, where we tell them which they can't sell the land outside of social housing. There's a lot of restrictions which actually makes, at the end, tries to protect whatever happens, even if when you fall and you get liquidated, the land must still remain within social housing. The beneficiaries must be disturbed as little as possible, and the aim and what we then account for to the municipality is the number of units that still remain under the social housing ban. Even if now you don't want to, but you want to sell to another accredited SHI, so that the social housing program remains intact. And as I said, with that contract that they signed with us, with the SHRA and the municipality, the part where they manage the process is actually indefinite until something happens and somebody wants to cancel. But we don't say what you manage it between now and 2010. There's no period like normal contracts. It actually said what the agreement with you as works indefinitely, and then depending on your compliance, there's ways where we can then punish you as a social housing institution, and then make sure that the right social housing institution is running this program for the benefit of the beneficiaries that were it was intended for. So sorry for going into these details, but I keep getting misquoted, so I try to explain what, legally this is what we're trying to do. So once they then get over it, they then run it and they run it and they run it, and then through what happened, and then through what happened even here, then you get things like complaints from the tenants and things that actually go wrong, and rental boycotts and so forth. Then you know that it's in trouble. Then once that trouble happens, then we are entitled by the Act to intervene. That's in terms of Section 12 of the Act, to say, okay, SHRA, there's been complaints from tenants, there's been issues raised, they are legitimate. Please first do a forensic investigation, then intervene by getting an administration order to then take over the property and get it away from the hands that are misusing it. And then part of that intervention is making sure that it then still complies with social housing, while we then look at the problem and then find whoever then, according to the criteria, can then still run it the way it's supposed to be. So when it happened, I was not at the SHRA at that time, but when it happened that things were happening at Sondela, the duty then on the SHRA was to then do that forensic investigation, find out whether the company is being run. We call that maladministration. There's a specific definition for that in the Act. See that the company, there's maladministration, it includes crimes and what, but see that once you find that, please step in. And that process also takes time because it requires a court order. You don't just step in and say, please stop doing this. You actually have to give notice at court, or in certain cases bring urgent applications. But it's only once you've got that order saying SHRA, the administration order that's sought by the SHRA is granted, and now you may step in, that we are then able to then come to the offices and then seize what we can seize, and then make sure that at least from there is control by the SHRA, who is the guardian of this thing, and that we then deal with the issues that have arose, and then we deal with, as I said, with their consequences for these people. So though, again, this process is not exonerating them. It's just saying, let's get the project back to what social housing is about. We then get into that process once you've got that order, and then once we've got that order, again, we have to run it until we are sure that, so we need to then give a report back to court to say, court, now the tenants are the tenants that qualify, now the tenants are paying rentals, court, can you please remove this administration order now? So that's the only way then we can then remove and then let the project run itself, where we can then give proper feedback, which we know who is in each unit. They are now paying rental according to the Act. There's now somebody who's looking after there's services as well, because we need to report back to court when we want to uplift the order to say that there's a functioning social housing project. Otherwise, the court will still say remain under administration. So that depends on then the collaboration or how we then work together with the tenants. So it does take long, like this project when there's hijacking, but sometimes, given the fact that it's an administrative thing, it can take even 6 months. And then during those months, because the SHRA again is a body and we've got employees and we don't have sufficient people, we then are permitted to then to say, during that month, we're not imposing social service providers on you, but it's SHRA, you've got a mandate, then please hire a security company. Please hire a management company to assist you with getting forms, because we simply don't have those bodies internally, and we don't, and we then do what we call service providers, where we hire them for a short term, and they might seem imposed, but we are in an emergency process, and we are just trying to say, let's get the regularization, let's get back a report where the program is no longer under administration. Then in the normal course, please can you hire your security for the long term? Can you hire your administrators for the long term, and so forth? But while we are trying to go back to court to say the project is now functioning, we then do those emergency procurements. But what happens is that, depending on where it is, we do advertise on our website and in the tender website, and it's there, it shows, and then anyone again then who meets the requirement is able to apply. So again, that process is not again saying, we want our own person, we're going to put them there by force. We still have to go, the Act is even specific that we must comply with the PFMA. So it's that in itself, as urgent as it looks, and as quickly as we may have to change things like it happened now, where we get them to sign 1 month contract, and then we're saying, okay, let's see what happens in this month. If we manage to regularize properly and everyone complies, that means we might not need to at the month end, because the project will be self-sustaining. We'll then review it as we get closer. And then it happens that maybe we haven't gotten far, or there's resistance and whatnot, then we then again have to quickly then go back and then get, just so that you guys, there's no break in the service that is being provided at that time. So during this particular administration process, we've only managed to just get 2 service providers. It's the security companies that have been coming on site, and then it's the managing agent that is helping us now. Those are the ones. We haven't hired anyone outside of that, and we are not trying to. The aim is to regularize before a specific period, and then again, their contracts are short. The process must come to a point where we are also able to go back to the court to say, the project is now regularized, can you then uplift the administration order? That is our ultimate goal, and that is why we come time and again. So when we say then regularize, and you'll see there are different ways to get information, but we've then had a form where you then, like you would, let's say, so what then makes this situation difficult and whatnot is that we are not handing over a new project where we were able to say, okay, when you moved in, we've done your process and you've moved in correctly. We note that during this process, there was no control at the site, and we will find that there's a significant number of people who moved in without going through the process, right? So we are saying now, because we need to, this just on the law, can you please then, those ones that have moved in, come and do the right thing, which is what we are asking, guys. Just do the right thing. And again, you may have an issue with what you have to do, and we're not saying we can't step over your rights. So if you feel that providing us information because you are not happy with what we are, or your information might be compromised, you have to contact the information regulator. There's ways, but follow them. Don't just take the point which you want to then fight, or we must then be at opposite ends just because what you stated you don't like. It's law. Law can be challenged anywhere, including a court of law. But if we then state one thing and it doesn't sit well with you, we don't have to be at loggerheads. You can still then, when somebody is approaching you for that form, raise your issues and then follow the channels to actually attend to specifically what you want. So me stating the law does not mean now, I know it's been interpreted in that way, which we are strong arming everybody and it must happen. We're just saying this is the mandate of the SHRA. We're here to do 1, 2, 3. And again, because it affects you, in the manner that it affects you, you then literally follow the channels to actually have then those issues either dealt with or decided somewhere in a court where you are then have your rights enforced. So if then your right is legitimately, then you'll have something that says, SHRA, you can't do this to this person because of court order 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it's all a process, and once we initiate it, we're not saying, now we are closing all your gaps. You can then decide on your own to challenge it and take it to the end, and we can't stop you.
Those that
may not have understood the program as it were. You indicated that the meeting was called by the community while we had committed ourselves to come back in no time, but there was perhaps no motivation to come back 2 weeks ago because there was not much progress. So today we came because we had made a commitment that we will come on a Saturday or on a weekend. So this is one of those weekends, or the weekend that we agreed to come. I don't know whether the colleagues on the floor have any question that they want it to be answered by either myself or Mr. Dladla. As I said, there's 4 of us here in front. I'm opening for questions and clarity seeking comments as it were.
Because it's an MK camera, I'm sending the message to Mr. Mahlabe and Bonginkosi Kanyile to say, in these problems we are having now, here, we also have the group that it's a vigilante group. It's a mob group. They are here to distract. They are here to make sure that the portfolio doesn't stick or doesn't become what it is. Now, I'm saying this because impilo yami la ayikho safe. I was assaulted by one of these vigilante groups. They came to be MK members. So hence I'm calling Honorable Bafana Mahlabe to come and make investigation to this membership. Abanye claim to be good Patriotic Alliance. I hope Gazen, sorry to butcher his name, he will come and assist. Now, in terms of abanye, I know ukuthi ngengakhuluma no President Zandile wakududula and he was able ukosha abanye kuyo yona le group. So we have this vigilante group ela to make sure ukuthi le portfolio layer la SondelaVillage ayiyenzakali. And because I'm vocal and because kuningi okuyenzakala la engikubonayo, then impilo yami isengcupheni. There is a security la, but I'm still being assaulted. SHRA, if you may, I need a security 24 hours lang sala kona because not only minang assaulted this Sunday, the video is here, right? There is also a group loku khona security. Let's hope njengoba ubahambisile Sithenjwa amaphoyisa said it's an investigation, and because there were Zulu men abazela 12:30 baphethe ipamu and they came in and they assaulted ipartner yami. We have videos, we have everything. So yinto enzakala eSondelaVillage by this particular vigilante people. So Bafana Mahlabe, I know this video will get to you. They came to be MK. Please respond. Uzanele Kamfukeng.
What about the person who is let's say 30? I don't know her name. So then kunu ukuthi mina bese SHRA
Stella Probe Protectors.
Sine property owner nala eSondela. Yalo mama lo. The other day bengilanda amafoni wami lapha ya ebusuku. Ngithola uClass. Nalo mntana entombazane esebenza lapha emandleni. Oqala ama glasses. Namanye nokugwengo ngakazi ngawubona. Bale mkhukhu bonke bahlala la. Ama dustbin bebawalahlela. Ambe wena ucall uAngle Victor nabanye abantu ukuthi hayibo ama dustbin uClass nangiya. Ngelinye ilanga uClass walandwa amaphoyisa bezofuna isikhaza la eSondela. Wayikhala kwenjana nencini. Era kithi next. Mara uClass at night ukanje we active. So lana eSondela we have abantu abafana noClass abahamba ngobusuku. We have umama lo hlala lapha yana okuthaveni la. Yes. Othenga utshwala khona la without any license. Umama uyi property owner. Ubehamba nalo busuku. I don't know which media house are you coming from. Bebahamba baponja. Yes, that side. Mara she was this side with this journalist, so-called journalist. pointing around. And nalo mama lo bathu mase. And we went there and asked them with angry Vic. Lo mama wathi hey, ungazongibuza intombi yami ifundile. I never asked her daughter's qualification. But that woman was so defensive to a point ukuthi azongitshela ukuthi intombi yakhe ifundile. I never asked that woman ukuthi umntana wakhe ufunde kangaka. Nathi sifundile mama. Ufundile yena. Nathi sile esikolweni sibethi nanya part of the meeting. No. Hayi, barwa bangere baba le power star.
So you want to collect the rent, and the general feeling of the public is they want the electricity restored. So it doesn't really make sense if you want people to pay and there's no electricity. I mean, that I think is the general feeling of the people.
Restore electricity as it were. Where he's asking when, I'm not asking a different question. Okay, there are about 5 questions that I've noted. Closing date, regularization, which was yesterday. Somebody who's changing income. Somebody's getting paid 9,000. They are in here, they lose their job, they are earning 0. What happens to them? What happens to people who are earning above 22,000? There's a property owner, if you can just confirm that indeed there is or not. I think we all know the answer, but confirm from the regulator. The last one is the 1 year rent. Not year rent, year electricity. Yeah, if you can respond to those. Where need be, I'll come in.
So thank you again, Mpagati, for listening to us. The process, so we remember, so we were, when we then came to give the notices, it was around the 18th of October. So we calculated that, give a month to then deal with whatever, allow everyone to then at least give them an opportunity to consider and then come and submit their applications. And that date, yes, it's correct, it ended yesterday. But again, we have to regularize. And the main aspect of it is not to say, remember again, as I said, we've got service providers that are just for the short term. So while we can, we set those timelines and then use them to assist us. But if you were not able to, so the deadline was Friday, we just need genuine beneficiaries or people that we just want to establish that, nothing more. Onto it, if we can have you and if you volunteer information and we look at it, we will consider. But the cutoff was the 15th, and then on your basis, if you look at yourself and you're saying, I still want to submit, rather submit than have whatever happens then and say I've submitted, then not submit and fight that when the date is over, you didn't get a chance, you didn't get what. If you are genuine about this process and you want to submit, yes, the date is over. Submit and then come back and say, no, the SHRA refused to look, if whatever, but at least you've done your part, because we told you the aim of the process is to just make sure that we've found people and we are able to report back wherever and at court to say the people inside Sondela do comply with the program. Given the nature of social housing, yes, it's income based, people's situations changed. Now I can't speak in general because of what. But again, you have to have a government that cares, that looks at your particular scenario. It can't be about just throwing people in the street. So when I've applied, guys, this is where I am, you come in front of the regulator will look and say, this is what happened, this is this person's scenario. We'll then have to take it from there, look at what is there. But again, we can't say, now when you don't qualify, this is what will happen to you, this is what will happen to you. Let's work with each other, let's work with those who've got units. The one thing is that what we're working here is people who are actually inside units. So whatever then they come with while they're inside that unit, it has to be looked at and dealt with in a proper manner. It's not just about throwing people out. So yes, you have to think when you do now legislation, people won't just, in fact, we can qualify today. Tomorrow, lose umsebenzi ungabina lutho. Is it now that you're now going to be just thrown out? It can't be that random. But it needs to go through the relevant processes. So it's not unique. They say, it's not. So again, it's also a progressive realization, dealing with your own circumstances, see what we can do, but knowing what social housing is, but then dealing with you. Right, you are winning. Asikusiza ukuthi uwine and not just now you are being thrown out. When just because you've improved your life, you are trying, you are improver, then we are countering. Remember, the project is also about empowerment. So we encourage you guys to break the barrier and then seek the relevant avenues to actually progress and be where you are. At the end of the day, the government, throughout these programs, you must be fully emancipated where you are able to then, on your own terms, then deal with the special housing without the initial inequalities that come with the fact that the background if you rent a complex private eseduze ikalak 8,000, we will still try and cater for a specific bracket and have them live the same quality of life as those ones, but then also thriving to be like that, but in a sort of controlled environment. In social housing, as much as there's different stakeholders, there are no owners of units. So the question of ownership that came this side is that there's someone who owns. It can't. It's nowhere. It's not the nature of the program. The program is purely based on rentals, and you will see which people do try call themselves tenants because they understand the ownership is not part of this program. The rental tribunal has come forward to say we will do tenant education and just make sure that our tenants know their rights, even when they are abused by someone who's a landlord and not to have ways where they can ventilate without incurring legal costs. About governance and so forth, ECSOS is at our beck and call. They will come and educate. This is the kind of relationship that we have. When you step out, how do you lodge a complaint with CSOS? How do you lodge locals? So we have ways where, as much as there are legal issues, they are resolved because we're trying to then get away from the burden of having to pay attorneys and so forth. The rental tribunal is free and it does resolve tenant-landlord disputes. And they are now, we had a roadshow from the beginning of the year where we went around the country with all tribunals. They are now sensitive to social housing issues and how our tenants are being exposed in these programs and what they need. So they will approach you from a point of social housing and make sure whoever is placed here, wherever it happens, that person is held into account, and vice versa. If you need then something to be done, they issue orders that are binding. Their ruling has the same weight as a ruling as a magistrate court. As much as we are saying let's regularize, the one thing is when we discuss these things is a proper vetted tenant list that has people who are committed to pay rent. When you say you are committed, you're saying I've signed that and I know which I'm committed, and then you're like, but wait, rental services. SHRA, then what are you doing to make sure we get those services? Because there is no social housing project without services. Even when it's conceptualized, people have to detail plans how they're going to get services to the people. So when it's cut, it's not ideal. And we're not saying pay rentals just so that remains like that. I did say, as much as we talk about differently, it's going concurrently. Even now, there's very same people in the community. They are approaching MMC municipality without the SHRA. And they're actually getting them to talk to the SHRA as well. That opportunity we were provided today where we met with one of the ward councillors. And the main issue was, however, we're talking rentals now. At some stage, we must be at a point so we are working on that. It's a process and it's there. And I'm happy because as much as we're trying, no one is saying they're waiting for me to come back. People actually went directly, and because of them, they then contacted. But who I haven't been able to get hold of, contacted me today because of your efforts. So we keep working towards it. It's a must. We can't negotiate it. I can't say because. At the end of the day, and that's where we're going.
Here we are talking about social housing here, but there's an option which is can be comparable to social housing, but is an ownership option, which is called first home finance. Abanye mhlawumbe bayazi nge-FLISP. I-caterer for that bracket yabantu ba-end up to 22,000. So NHFC is the one that administers that program. SHRA administer CCG or social housing. The NHFC administer loan. Until last year, there was a requirement to have a bond. It's no longer a requirement to have a bond to qualify for first home finance, as long as you've never had a property and you earn up to 22,000. You can approach the NHFC for assistance. If you want an option of ownership, which is outside this one.
So I prefer kabateli inkomo ukuthi nibe nendlela yokuthi nibe kumthetho qala sifuna umuntu oso so that mangabe umuntu akaqualify bangazoba because ngoba inkinga mongathi manje bakhethana ukucisho kwaliwa kuzoba worse than this then mawuqanda ukubeka umthetho once you define umthetho then uzoba ne-problem, but once it's law, everybody once it is funa this space also kuzofuneka lo muntu lo. I think that can assist everything here.
Assisted by Mama Tapelo and her team. She's here. Dladla, I've been introduced here. So we've introduced her. She's here. She's the one that again is the face on the ground. That is the SHRA official that you might be looking for. That has that mandate and that is accountable. It's this person. So there are people on the ground. There's one office.
Essentially means even Manyama who's standing here can collect forms. It's not an office.
It's not an office at all.
Collection of forms.
Yes.
It's just here from the local office, that's all.
And then there was two powerful statements that I agree with. Yeah. And I don't know if there were questions, but it's literally an indictment on us. This is exactly what we're trying to achieve. Let's try that. The issue of security, the issue of safety, the issue of spare keys. So one of the main things is that again, once we had security, is that we've now asked them to quote us on changing locks and making sure that then the person who's then given the key, then they know which they have the only key. So if we go to your house and say, this is still in the process, but the end game is that when we go to you saying, you know what, we know Wuti once there was a situation, keys went missing and they could be anywhere. Can we please then assist you in changing your locks and then give you the only key so that you are now secure and saying, Mina, I've got my key and no one else has it. So that process has been done. We did receive quotes and we know Wuti, you are vulnerable in that sense. They are keys that pop up out of nowhere.
ifella wana mo notice ya meeting e tla tswa re ona le meeting
then the meeting tse na le go etsahala we ke nke tsona obane sibula le bana mo ke di spetse sa feeling no man isavula le obane ba mathapana la isi.
Please make sure I've got your emails, guys. I do. So with regards to emails, there's also been that thing which I'm sending to a few. So what I did was I asked the guys to assist me with the spreadsheet. So I just copy from those emails. Some of them, because they were not captured correctly, they do come back to me as non-deliverable. But please, just make sure that it's there. They will update the list.